Well, hello everyone. My name is Erinn Oxford. I'm grateful to the organizers of this conference and their collective heart to explore how we can live out God's mission in the world in an imaginative, neighborly, and loving way. I'm going to share a bit of my own story of listening, evolving, and responding in my work in Parkdale, a neighborhood in Toronto's West End, through the Dale, a nomadic community organization and church of which I am executive director and pastor. I am one who's just trying and fumbling, I think, sometimes to intentionally try and figure out what it means to build community that is responsive to the neighborhood, inclusive, and engaged. It's messy work and it's very beautiful. I'm also grateful this morning to Dave, who's going to be running my PowerPoint, I think, for me. And so, if we're able, we'll see slide one. But while that's happening, in 2012, I became the only staff of what was previously known as Parkdale Neighbourhood Church. We had to face the difficult realization at the time our funding had run its course. I was asked to come up with a strategic plan, one that might reimagine how we exist in the neighborhood. The irony was that though we were flourishing as a community, we did not have the resources to continue paying rent, taking care of maintenance, or even paying for the internet. As a community that has chosen to center those who are marginalized, we needed to acknowledge that our financial sustainability would not be found within. Our people give generously just out of their very little. And so, having given notice to our landlords on a sunny day near the end of June 2012, I took down the sign from the gate and the door of the building that had been our home for years. That day, we became a church without our own walls. I like to say it was when we decided to spill into the street. Community members decided that leaving a trail of footprints, which you'll see on the next slide, would be a good way to assure people that we weren't gone. And so we dipped our feet in chalk paint and left a trail which people could find to follow us. I began to knock on the doors of buildings, asking if they might have underused space to share with us. We began to use a variety of spaces for our programming. As a result, we prioritized spending time on the street, visiting people, offering support at appointments and in court. By choosing to exist in a small space, we could intentionally inhabit much of it. Part of our reimagining also included finding a new name. I asked our community members to describe what PNC, Parkdale Neighbourhood Church, had meant to them. Though there were many descriptors used, the number one word was safe. A dale is a valley that cuts through a mountain, the place where one hides when facing a storm. And so every day, the Dale Ministries, or more often simply the Dale, endeavors to be a safe community for many, including me. And we can move ahead to that slide that shows the Dale. Well, Jane Jacobs, the American Canadian journalist, author, and activist, did have some influence over the new approach that we were holding at the Dale. During her lifetime, Jane advocated for cities to be oriented around people. Quote, a city street equipped to handle strangers and to make a safety asset in itself out of the presence of strangers, as the streets of successful city neighborhoods always do, must have three main qualities. First, streets and their sidewalks are framed by buildings. These buildings provide the important thresholds between public and private spaces. They are the tangible facilities that allow streets to be vibrant public spaces. If buildings fail to provide permeability, harmony, and rhythm, the street as public space suffers. Streets are, in essence, public spaces and connect diverse areas of the city, weaving the urban fabric. Second, there must be eyes upon the street, eyes belonging to those we might call the natural proprietors of the street. The buildings on a street equipped to handle strangers and to ensure the safety of both residents and strangers must be oriented to the street. They cannot turn their backs or blank sides on it and leave it blind. And third, the sidewalk must have users on it fairly continuously, both to add the number of effective eyes on the street and to induce the people and buildings along the street to watch the sidewalks in sufficient numbers. The Dale spends a lot of time on sidewalks around Parkdale. We sit with people on benches and on street curbs. From there, we move to buildings where we can be welcoming to all people. We also spend time in businesses, getting to know the people who run them, like a place called Capital Espresso, a coffee shop that knows me and the staff, along with many of our community members by name. They give us enormous bags of muffins and remember how we take our coffee. This is part of our attempt at weaving an urban fabric. It's a Monday, which means drop-in time at the Dale. We are housed at a Toronto Community Housing Building's recreation room from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. People will come into the space for a variety of reasons, to have a cup of coffee, to play bananagrams, to help assemble sandwiches or set the tables. People come for any number of reasons, but if we were to boil it down to one, it is to connect. Next slide. The Dale welcomes all people and makes intentional space, and another slide, for those who are too often pushed to the margins. We are a varied group. Many of us live rough outside, some in community housing, and only a few in houses of our own. Some of us are struggling with addiction to street drugs or alcohol or television or overeating. Some of us have diagnosed mental health challenges that range from depression and anxiety to paranoid schizophrenia. We are a motley crew, one that in large part knows what it is to be shunned because we smell like the street. The truth is, many people have selected us as the unlovable. In an effort to silence the voices that say otherwise, we acknowledge we share a common humanity. We know we are broken and choose again and again and again to journey alongside one another toward deeper wholeness in Christ. We can move to the next slide. My longtime friend, Ronnie, panhandles outside Capital Espresso. We always joke that you will hear Ronnie before you see him, his booming voice announcing his imminent arrival, or the score of the hockey game, or his need of a cigarette. Ronnie does a mean impression of both Mick Jagger and Elvis Presley. Every time I see him, he asks me how my heart is and patiently listens to my reply, even if it means losing out on receiving change from a person passing by. One particularly cold and snowy Sunday, we were walking along Queen Street West and unsurprisingly saw Ronnie outside Capital Espresso, tucked into the bus shelter and sitting on a walker. I popped my head in to say hello and was immediately taken aback. Ronnie was shivering, struggling to eat, and uncharacteristically subdued. We talked about what might be most helpful to him. Before leaving, Ronnie grabbed my mittened hand and pulled it to his face. Then he kissed me on the cheek and asked me to bless him. I placed my free hand on his head and spoke quiet words of peace. Our heads leaned in and touching. We stayed like that for a while before saying "I love you" to each other. Just days later, Ronnie died. The news of his death spread like rapid fire. Our friends at Capital Espresso reached out to me, expressing both their condolences and heartache over Ronnie's death. He brought a special warmth to the neighborhood. Please let us know about the funeral. Well, one of the ways that I process grief is to write. I penned something titled My Friend Ronnie and posted it online. Ronnie's sister, someone I had heard about but never met, read my story and reached out. By the end of the day, I was hearing all about Ronnie's early life from an assortment of family members. They asked me to officiate a funeral and agreed to an additional memorial to be held at the Dale. As I looked out at the people gathered at the memorial, I was struck by how Ronnie managed to do in death what he also did in life. Next slide. Welcome people, whatever their circumstances. That's Ronnie in front of his friend Steve-O. The space was filled with family, friends, and neighbors, including staff of Capital Espresso. His best buddy brought the hat Ron always panhandled with and laid it in the middle of the aisle. People began to fill it with tobacco, money, feathers, a bottle of cheap sherry. As someone who lived life hard, Ronnie brought a certain empathy to his interactions, which is exactly what we want to do at the Dale. We want to nurture relationships, build partnerships, and create interdependence with as many of our neighbors as possible. So how have Ronnie and others influenced how the Dale extends welcome? How do you make communities inclusive? We begin with a very low threshold. People are invited to come as they are. We have determined that our spaces need to be both safe and respectful. We seek to co-create such spaces by listening with understanding, speaking with kindness, and building opportunities to both give and receive. If someone is contributing to the space being unsafe or disrespectful, we will challenge that behavior. Important, though, is that we never retract relationship. Trust is earned slowly. How does a community become engaged? At the Dale, everyone is invited into full participation, an attempt to have people experience what it means to both give and receive, a value that is too often lost when one is consistently the recipient of charity. We try our best to eliminate anything that feels us, them. It is about us creating community together. This means, as an example, that at a Monday drop-in, the room is set up, the food is distributed, and the cleanup is done primarily by our core community members. We eat around tables. As staff, we endeavor to take a posture of humility. We know that we have so much to learn from our people. We often say that while our roles might differ at the Dale, our shared responsibility for it does not. For me in the Dale, inclusive community requires three things: creating awareness, breaking down barriers. We are more the same than we are different. At the same time, we can celebrate what makes us unique, fostering friendships, practice presence, be available, walk the streets, get to know one another's names, share yourself in an authentic way, dare to be vulnerable. The Dale did what many describe as the unimaginable by becoming a church without our own building. In the context of this community, we are reminded of God's presence. God has seen fit to multiply the loaves and the fishes in Parkdale, and I mean this quite literally. In the early days of our crisis, when there was no money to purchase food for our drop-in, we somehow had full plates. And I am no longer the only staff. There are now 4 of us. Practicing presence takes time. Our relationship with Ronnie and so many others is evidence of that. I think Oscar Romero's words are a profound and good reminder for any of us as we reimagine what it means to be in the neighborhood. Quote, "So it is for us, we may never see end results, and what we do may in the end be very incomplete. Still we minister, still we love, hoping for the kingdom which is beyond our vision. Still we plant and water the seeds which may not be our own, but in truth belong to future generations. Still we find meaning in our lives, as incomplete as they may actually be, because we participate in something much larger than ourselves. And in this hope, we prophesy of the kingdom of God. We prophesy of a future that is not our own." Thank you.